Welcome to everyone here in person today, and to everyone who's visiting our service with the help of modern technology. The UU Fellowship of Lake Norman is an open and inclusive congregation. Our members walk diverse paths to find their meaning and purpose, but we're united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and by the responsibility to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Sandy McFeely, and I've been an active member of this congregation since 2013. Our speaker today is our minister, Reverend Pat Jobe, and our guest musician returning is Teresa Woody. And Harvey Wichter has said he is willing to speak to us for a minute or two because this is a very important day in the history of Judaism. It's Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And he's far better qualified than I to tell us a little about it.
Well, the summer is over. A new year is starting. It's time to consider your resolutions and your sins, to ask forgiveness for what you've done, and to make resolutions for the new year. And also to forgive yourself the resolutions you made last year but didn't keep. So, a happy high holidays.
Thank you, Harvey. And now Reverend Pat will give us some opening words.
Our opening words today are not going to come from me. They're going to come from one of the most outstanding church staff members I have worked with in my now 30th year of ministry. Autumn Weathers is part of a statewide effort encouraging Senator Tillis and Senator Burr to pass the Afghan Adjustment Act. And last week, we joined UUs from across the state to lobby Senator Burr's staff and let them know how important this is to us. And Autumn is going to give us a few words about why it is personally so important to her.
All right. Well, as some of you guys know, I'm actually a United States veteran. I served in the U.S. Navy during Operation Enduring Freedom. And so I had a chance to actually speak to Kelsey, the representative in Senator Burr's office, about this matter. She's the one that actually decides things on immigration and gathers information. So yeah, I had a chance to sit down and talk with her. We had about 19 people that had joined us in the room. We had Larry Burchett joined us. He's also a veteran. And then we had several other people that are supporting Afghan refugees here in the state. But as a veteran that had served during the Operation Enduring Freedom and supported all the efforts that were going on over there in Iraq and Afghanistan, what's happened, 20 years has passed and we literally pulled out, and the thousands of people that we've been able to gather at the time where we pulled out, you know, it's just a drop in the hat. And there's so many people that are still over there and have fled to Pakistan and other neighboring countries that really do need protection. But September 30th, the current Afghan Adjustment Act is actually expiring. And after September 30th, if the Senate doesn't pass this bill, and then it would be going on to the House of Representatives. If it doesn't pass by September 30th, all those people are going to be in limbo. They don't have paperwork, or at least majority of them don't have paperwork. And so they're going to be basically, you know, at the mercy of ICE and potentially being deported back to Afghanistan. So one of the things that I mentioned when I was talking to Kelsey was some of my experiences doing things with soldiers. And so I had mentioned to her a really good family friend of mine, Eric Williams. He's actually an Army Sergeant, airborne medic. He's the guy that would come in on an Apache helicopter and jump out, grab people in the front lines that were, you know, in the worst of shape, and pulling them to safety and giving them medical treatment in the process. So he, was dodging bullets on a daily basis. But he risked his life a number of times to help Afghanistan civilians. And so we had this whole email dialogue back and forth in July of 2012 because he's coming back home. This is going to be his final deployment to Afghanistan. And we were just so excited about being able to be together in the United States. And we're just talking about how good it's going to be, try to be a normal person. But some of the things that he was sharing with me, though, was the uncomfortableness that he felt. And I kind of shared with him about, people saying, thank you for your service, because they really don't know some of the things that you see and deal with as a military representative. But more than that, in 2012, we were coming out of the recession, and it was just really starting to get very politically divisive. And so he was saying how much he doesn't feel good about coming back from Afghanistan with the political divisiveness. And, fast forward now 10 years, it's been, even more so. But one of the things that I really wanted to reiterate with Burr was that Eric Williams, 10 days after I had this email conversation back and forth about what we're going to do, he actually went through the whole the process of coming out of Afghanistan. They have, different procedures that you follow to kind of reunite yourself with civilian life. And so he was in a tent getting ready to come back to Germany, and a shoulder rocket went into the tent, and he dove on it to save everybody that was in the tent. And his own life was gone at that point. But there was just so many people that have sacrificed amazing things for democracy, for right to education, for women's rights, for all these things that it didn't happen the way we want it to. But right now, we need to be doing everything that we can to honor the people that served, whether they're Afghanistan or American. And it should not be a partisan thing. And unfortunately, it is right now. So I ask everybody, if you have a veteran that you know that served either during Operation Enduring Freedom or before, please get on the phone call. Just call them up and ask them, would they spend a moment of their time and contact their senator? Because this is such an important thing. So it's humanitarian. It's just dignity. So yeah, that's all I have right now for opening words. I guess it's like acting in my UU faith. I've been harassing tons of veterans that I know. So I'm asking everybody in the room to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Autumn. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words that are in your order of service. The person in charge of doing these things forgot the little candle. I must speak to her about that. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we see. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. And now, the story for all ages.
Yeah.
All right. The story for all ages crowd is coming up, including one in the tiara. Your Majesty, we're so glad to have you with us today. So this is the story. When we hired your mom, Autumn Weathers, we had applications from 100 people. And we interviewed about 9 or 10 of them. And she was so far above all the other candidates. We noticed how wonderful she was. And now you all are going to get to go to class with her and experience how wonderful she is. You may now go.
And now please stay comfortably seated while Teresa takes us with her music into a time and place.
We're on. You going to talk first, or do you want me to call them up here?
You call them up.
Okay. We are recognizing new members today, and I need Claudia and Alan Perkinson, and Joe Abney, and Sylvia Abney, and Grace Bushusha. I've been calling you Buchacha. I apologize. and Arvin and Helen Patel to come up. What a gang. What a lovely assembly.
There's lots of space. Yeah. I just want to say it's a thrill to do new members when there are wonderful new members. This is a period of over a year and a half. Because of COVID, we didn't always get to come out when it was normally our turn to be recognized. And it's just a delight to be able to recognize so many fine people that are active. They are active. They are not just, oh, we're going to join, maybe we'll participate. They are participants. And it's an absolute delight. And I thank you. And we have a gift for you. We have two different types of plants. And please help yourself to what you would like. And some of them are in ground for outside, and some of them are in for the inside house or outside. And that's it. That's the whole spirit.
And while you're picking out your plants, go ahead and help yourselves to your plants. While you're picking out your plants and taking them back to your seats, I want to give a shout out to Jamie Bozian, because Jamie is watching from home. Hey, Jamie, we love you, buddy. Thank you for joining. I've got a little bit of housekeeping I need to do before I start into my reflection. I want you all to be aware that the Carolina Abortion Fund is facing a funding shortage because of the recent Supreme Court action. There are a number of people coming into North Carolina to get an abortion because we do not yet restrict abortions at the same level as some of these other states. And so we have a lot of people coming into North Carolina who need abortion services, need reproductive justice, and the Carolina Abortion Fund is running out of money on a regular basis. The presentation that we heard last week said that basically they can deal with 2 weeks out of the month, and then they shut down for 2 weeks, and then they start back at the beginning of the next month helping people. Their website is carolinaabortionfund.org. And if you want more information about this, I'll be glad to talk with you after the service. I also want to give a shout out to Pat Wall, which I did not do last week. Pat walked in the Barefoot Mile, despite the fact that she recently had foot surgery. Now, she did not, yeah, go ahead, give her a round of applause. Now, she did not walk barefoot. And I hope you can understand that in light of the fact that she recently had foot surgery. But she did a great job walking, and I kept up with her. So that was great. Yeah. And as you've seen in your order of service, the money we raised surpassed $1,100. And I think the final figure for the whole effort is going to be about $20,000 to help rescue children from childhood slavery and to provide them with services beyond. And one of the beneficiaries of the walk was an organization in Concord called On Eagle's Wings, which is a local safe house for women who've been rescued from prostitution and children who've been rescued from childhood slavery. So it was an amazing piece of work, and we all did it together, and I love you all very much for doing it. Also, before I start, I want to express a special thank you to Arvin, because Arvin came up to me after the service 2 weeks ago, and he and I had different views of science as a UU filter. Doug is laughing because we were very different in our views of science. But he came up to me after the service and he added humanity. He said, "Isn't humanity a UU filter?" And it certainly is. It's a wonderful way to describe the UU filter. We can filter politics, religion, ritual, ancient text through a filter of our shared humanity. We're all in this together. Allegedly, there is a sign on the wall at Auschwitz, which has been preserved as a historical reminder of the horrors of the Holocaust. The sign reads, "Practice more humanity." We would do well to do that. So, Arvin, I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much. Dr. Jim Arnold was kind enough to bid on one of the sermon topics at our June auction, and he is watching from his college reunion. Hey, Jim. And he asked me to talk this afternoon to answer the question, how did we know? How did we know? When we first walked into a UU service or read something about Unitarian Universalism or heard from a friend about a UU congregation, how did we know we were home? One man in Spartanburg knew because he heard Stairway to Heaven played during his first service. He said, if they're going to play Stairway to Heaven, Teresa, you might put that in your memory bank. They're going to play Stairway to Heaven. He said, I'm home. Imagine, John Lennon's Imagine is another touchstone for Unitarian Universalists, and that song is on tap for our service in 2 weeks. Another man was in a doctor's office, and he read an article in the Reader's Digest about various religious traditions in the United States. And when he got to Unitarian Universalism, he said, "That's me." And he spent the next 60 years supporting and building up the Greenville UU Fellowship in Greenville, South Carolina. When a new minister arrived, he succinctly said, "If you lead a good worship service, nothing else will matter." And he said, "If you don't lead a good worship service, nothing else will matter." So let me just pause here and say, I think he might have been wrong about that. These services are where we are together in the largest numbers. But when 25 of us show up to build a dog fence, or 5 of us show up to walk the Barefoot Mile, or 5 or 6 of us cook and clean up at FeedNC, or write postcards, or do roadside cleanup, or attend a chalice circle, or go to the bus station to meet asylum seekers, or go to the movies together, or attend a book club meeting together, all of that matters too. Amen? We have a Pentecostal service here today. When one of us volunteers to help Autumn with the kids, or makes a phone call to a member in crisis, or helps in any way to soften the blows of life, all of that matters, and it matters in mighty important ways. And how clearly we saw our togetherness work this past week as we dealt with Sue's 2 falls, her brain bleed, and what feels like a miraculous recovery. Still, I'm so grateful. I'm still so grateful to our service leaders and to our wonderful musicians for making this happen. This is important. Our services are important. So how did we know? Many of you have heard my personal story. I told Meg Barnhouse I wasn't really a Methodist. I said I'm more of a Methodist Buddhist Quaker. And she said, "No, honey, you're a Unitarian Universalist." When I first walked into a service at the UU in Spartanburg, no one asked me if I believed in biblical inerrancy or the physical resurrection of Jesus. They did ask me if I wanted a cup of coffee. Each of us has a story. Many of us are here because we believe in full equality for LGBTQ folks, or peace, or environmental justice, or any number of dozens of political and social issues that float our boats. We even disagree about those issues sometimes, but we have made a covenant together to work through our disagreements in civil and kind ways. And if you're ever tempted to violate that covenant, you might check yourself. There are so many angles at which we come at all these issues and all that we feel about the life of this congregation. Now, some of us are here because we know there cannot be a punishing God lurking in the cosmos, ready to spring a trap of eternal damnation, the deep, fat fryer of eternity. It is a popular and unnerving idea that has many, many people trapped in a vice grip of uncertainty and what I like to call mental illness. It'll make you crazy. If you believe, and we all know people do believe, that your eternal fate might be hot roasted furniture and cod liver oil for eternity, if you believe that, how can you relax around anything else? Seriously. And some of these poor people have the same worry for their children and grandchildren. When I was a Methodist minister, I went to the county jail with a couple to visit their 15-year-old daughter, who we found in shackles and chains. In modern times, they had shackled and chained a 15-year-old girl. It was tough. It was a tough thing to get through. But I fear that these same people worry that that little girl may go to hell. Hell a torture chamber made most famous by Dante's Inferno, but continuously fictionalized and brought into print and movies and TV shows. The myth of eternal damnation is a deadly piece of psychological baggage that keeps getting lugged into the broader culture and reinforcing the lie of hell. We stand as a beacon of truth against it. Now, if you're ever pinned against the wall by somebody who believes this stuff, you tell them, Jesus was a Jew and Jews don't believe in hell. Boom. How did we know? How did we know? It feels to me as though hospitality is a major reason this thing works, although that can be nuanced. I've heard young people say that they would never go back to a UU service because the old people are clearly so anxious to get them back. I think it's a matter of overkill. The counter to this overkill might just be my mother's definition of greatness. It is a genuine interest in other people. If we are genuinely interested in other people, they might come back. Where do you live? What kind of work do you do? Do you have a family? Is your husband at home this afternoon watching football? I got that one the last time I was here. This interest in other people has to be genuine. If you don't really want to get an answer to any of these questions, don't ask. Don't ask. But listen. Listen anyway. Honest, sincere, deep listening is about as rare as anything in our cacophony of noise culture. When I wrote the word cacophony into this sermon, I was hoping I could pronounce it. Thank you. Thank you. We'd all much rather talk and be heard. It's hard work to listen and ask follow-up questions. Really? Tell me more about that. Or I love this one. Did I hear you say? Followed by your perception of what the other person said. I was trying to teach this in a group one night, and I was getting nowhere. Everybody kept telling their stories and talking about whatever and looking at me like I was from another planet. Finally, one elementary school principal said, let me see if I understand what you're saying. He said, are you saying that we should repeat back to people what we have heard them say so that we can make sure that we got it right? Bingo. He got it. How did we know? We knew we had found an alternative to the normal kind of religious organization, an alternative community. A number of you have mentioned that you like the community you find here. These people think like you, and you, and you. That works. Common thoughts, common assumptions, common rejections of other forms of religious community are all central to our success. But clearly, that is not all we have. If all we did was gather here on Sunday afternoons and share our commonalities, that would get pretty boring pretty quickly. We have to have purpose. And although it takes a great deal of purpose to organize these services, there has to be more. And you know that more is why we build dog fences, feed FeedNC, offer other forms of social action and community service. It is part of our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all persons. All persons. Yes, yes, yes. Sometimes it goes by like a flash. But in those moments, when we are affirming the worth and dignity of all persons, that's who we are. That's Jim Price's expression. He likes to use that a lot. That's who we are. That's who we are. Gandhi said, if God were to appear to a hungry man as anything other than a loaf of bread, it would be a scandal. That's who we are. We feed people regardless of their politics or their life choices. We build dog fences for people regardless of their politics or their life choices. And just in recent weeks, you heard Jim mention the fact that we have built dog fences in yards that were carrying Trump signs. They got a dog fence anyway. Sometimes the poverty and deprivation is quite an emotional tug. And I'm living through one of those right now. But in that moment, for that one span of time, we are communicating a message of worth and dignity. I genuinely urge you to at least once go with Doug and Pat Wall and Pat's sister Susan to the bus station to greet the asylum seekers. If for no other reason, it's just to hear Doug laugh. Everybody's on the same boat as Doug uses the translator on his phone to cross cultural barriers. And it's always seasoned with his infectious laugh. And while he is laughing and clowning to communicate the service, Pat and Susan and other volunteers are headed out to the car to find appropriate clothing and fill food bags. As Doug likes to say, if you want to do church, come to the bus station. And of course, it happens among the dog fences, the kitchen at FeedNC, along the roadside cleanups, back with Autumn and the kids, among the postcards, the trips to the movies and the book club. We are working to build the world we want to live in. Yes, yes. Maybe I got to pronounce this word too. Genius. Thank you. Maybe our genius is our lack of conditionality. We don't ask you if you believe anything about God or life after death or which translation of which ancient text you should be reading. There is acceptance here. How did we know? We knew because we weren't asked to leave when we wore the wrong kind of t-shirt or had a funny haircut. There are so many horror stories of people never coming back to a certain meeting house because they were greeted with criticism for what they were wearing. Holy cow. They obviously believe the gates of heaven are guarded by folks who check dress code. But we need to be careful. We need to be careful. We need to always be on guard against arrogance. You will sometimes hear me tell of the 5 people who left our fellowship in Greenville because somebody told them their ideas were crazy. We have to be careful. You hear me talk a lot about love, but we can't all love each other. It just can't be done. Too many snags catch us and pull us apart. But we can be accepting. Our genius is acceptance. I attended a meeting of UUs in their 80s and 90s, and the woman running the meeting asked each of them to tell how they had come to be among us. To a person, each one said, I didn't fit in anywhere else. So some of us are misfits, but not all of us. Some of us are rugged individuals determined to cut our own pathways. In the words of Admiral David Farragut at the Battle of Mobile Bay, we like to say, damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead. Some of us are like that, but not all. As we apply that some but not all rule, we need to be careful not to cast each other out. Crazy is a dangerous word that might just cost us someone of enormous value. Careful, careful, careful. And yes, it is often the music of Teresa and Mike and Eddie and Tim and the rest of us who do our best to make the kind of music that indicates our unity and our diversity. Yes, it is often the readings, our connections, especially to that 19th century crowd who took on slavery and women's rights and peace and justice in many places at many times. Sometimes it's even what the minister has to say during the service. Roger Baldwin, who founded the American Civil Liberties Union, was a Unitarian. And he was asked once, what influence did going to church have on you as a young man? And he thought about it for a second and he said, sometimes I even listened to what the minister had to say. Quinn, do you ever do that? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. You already know that the founder of the American Red Cross, Clara Barton, was a Unitarian. And the founder of the International Red Cross, Florence Nightingale, was a Unitarian. And now you know that Roger Baldwin, the founder of the ACLU, was a Unitarian. But did you also know that the founder of the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, Henry Berg, was a Unitarian? So maybe when you learned all that, we have also been on the right side of history, and in the coming months and years, we will do it again. If that sounds like shameless bragging, I simply remind you of the immortal words of Major League Baseball's Dizzy Dean. If it's true, it ain't bragging. Maybe I have not answered the question for you, or maybe you're a visitor. I don't think we've got any visitors today, but maybe, or not any first-time visitors anyway, maybe you are a visitor and you've not yet decided to join us as the new members we honored earlier and who have decided and joined, but that's okay. Our acceptance and encouragement extends to long-time visitors as well. We're glad you're here. Visit and sample the waters as long as you like. And we have begun opening the floor for feedback. So do you want to facilitate that if anybody has anything to say?
It's the moment you've all been waiting for. Questions, challenges?
How did you know? How did you know?
Well, I think the example of Sue, you mentioned that. I think I heard from just about everybody in this room, maybe everybody in the fellowship this week. I'm gonna cry.
We were with you, buddy. We were with you.
Yeah, I was scheduled to be a worship coordinator, Sandy. And you guys have just been there for Sue.
Sandy told me it was my lucky day that she was going to be up here. Yeah. And I need to point out, y'all, that last year, Linda Heidenberg also had a brain bleed, but she was in Florida at the time. That's why Dick did not get all the smoochy loving that Jim got this week.
I got it here.
You got it. You got it. Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't believe it, just try to get around Dick and not get smoochy loving. Who else? Anybody else got any? Yes, Gail.
My husband and I were sent to a city for a year in a rental, and I was going by and had never heard of Unitarianism before. There was a church was there in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and they were doing a sermon on anger or something, and it was a tough time. So then I go and try. But to go in there and listen to that minister, it was just pure relief. That I wasn't being told to believe something I didn't, and I was sitting there politely trying to do it. It was such relief, and I just, the minute we moved away from there, went and found a Unitarian church again. We've been Unitarian for 30 years now. But that's the word to me, is relief.
What a relief.
Yep.
What a relief. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. What a relief it is. Unitarian Universalism. The reason I'm repeating that, Gail, is not only because it's wonderful, but it's because people who are watching from home can't hear folks who are talking out here. So I will repeat anything you say. And actually, Gail did not say plop, plop, fizz, fizz. But she did say what a relief it is. Other stories? Yeah.
We attended the Unitarian Church in Yarmouth, Maine.
Okay.
Tom Schulite was the minister. I told you the story.
Yeah.
We went to church, he filled out the card and so forth, and then we got a call Sunday night, and Tom says, I'd like to come over there and talk to you Wednesday, bring a bottle of wine and some cheese. I said, well, sounds good, come on over. He came over, he says, I see you're interested in finance. He says, I'd like for you to be on the finance committee. I said, well, okay. He said, but I want you to chair it, so you gotta join the church. Then he looked at Pat and says, you're a teacher, I want you to head up RE. You gotta join the church, so we did.
Well, Doug and Pat, we want you to do what you damn well please. So you've got to join the church. Okay? That's right. Arvin.
I was born a Hindu.
Yes.
And the Hindu religion is very deep and multi-level religion. It operates on different levels. And the whole principle is that anything that uplifts you is good for a religion, okay?
Anything that uplifts you in Hinduism is good.
Yes. So when I came to this country and when I went to UU Church in first 1995, I felt at home. I felt that I was learning the Judeo-Christian principles that have really been the foundation of the Western world, which I unfortunately didn't understand and know. But I felt accepted, and that's what the acceptance that I've experienced in 1995. Unitarianism really appealed to me, and I thought Unitarianism is really the way for the future.
Yes, yes. Arvin felt accepted in a UU congregation in 1995. How wonderful. How wonderful. Emerson said in 200 years, everybody will be Unitarian. And we've still got 50 years. We need more t-shirts. We need more bumper stickers. Others. Yes, Grace.
Oh, I just was thinking, I was born a Christian, but then, married a Muslim and converted to Islam. And I really practiced. And for quite a lot, for 3 to 5 years about. And I just realized that after a while, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship was really the home for our family because it would accept, any religion. And it was great for Kamel and me because, we were members in Catawba County. And he's come here a few times, my husband Kamel. But
He's played the drums for us.
yeah, he's played
Yeah.
the drums here.
Yeah.
But it's just such a wonderful place to be able to talk about different religions, and you don't have to have a fear that somebody's going to criticize you and put you down. And, like today we talked about Rosh Hashanah. Well, maybe when Ramadan comes around, we can have a little spiel about that. I mean, it's just nice, or in Hinduism, there's something about that. So I just like it that we can be open to other faiths.
Grace likes it because we can be open to other faiths. And her wonderful Muslim husband has come here often and played the drums for us. Anybody else? Yes, Lynn.
I felt at home for the very same reason Grace was stated. When I understood that we valued and respected the words of all religions, that we could find some good, we could talk about them openly, we could accept. That's what did it for me. I was very fortunate not to grow up indoctrinated in any particular church. I was never baptized, I never went to a Sunday school, and for that I thank some of my wiser relatives. But I can tell you that I never would have thought of joining a church until I encountered the UU Church. And my husband was not as fortunate. He was deeply ingrained as a Baptist and fled only when he was old enough to say no more. So it's been a lot more difficult path for him. But I echo what Grace has said. We can, we've had people speak to us about Islam, about Buddhism. I've spoken to the group about Wicca. We've spoken about many religions, and I think that's the strength that drew me in.
Lynn is confirming what Grace said and appreciates the acceptance and appreciates that none of her relatives indoctrinated her in anything intolerant as she was growing up. We have readings in the back of our hymnal, I think, from 13 world religions. And we have readings from atheism and agnosticism too. So, Tim.
Just clear out my eyeballs.
Oh, were you? Okay. Okay. Claudia.
I was hesitant to hand up, but I will say that I left being a Catholic because I left at a time just a few years ago when there was another pope who was stricter and stricter, and the local parish became stricter and stricter, and that was just too strict for me.
We don't like strict. Claudia.
The first time I ever went to a Unitarian church was in the early 70s. And a friend had suggested I might like it, and I went to the church I attended was Adlai Stevenson's home church in Illinois. And the sermon, the first day that I attended was on stewardship of the earth. And the hope that got me was in the announcements at the end was they were taking names for people that would actively participate in helping with the recycle drive, actually going around and picking up newspapers and bottles and taking them to the center. And it was the action that got me.
Claudia got hooked on recycling. And the first church you went to was Adlai Stevenson's home church.
In Bloomington, Illinois.
Yeah. He was the last UU to run for president. But Obama's grandfather was Unitarian. And his grandmother asked him one time, said, "Why are we Unitarian?" He said, "Because it's 5 religions for the price of one." Okay.
Can we quote you? Can we quote you on that? Is that
Yes,
possible?
yes, it's in his book about dreams of my father.
And now Teresa will give us her view of the message. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. This fellowship is important to us all. The gifts we make today allow us to sustain and grow our congregation and to reach out to our community, both nearby and in the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community.
This way.
With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts. May they encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. Please look at the announcements with me that are in the order of service. Let me first congratulate Tim Brown, who was the first to at least report back that he had completed all of his postcards and they're ready to mail. Don't worry if you're not quite done yet. The mail out date is not until October 14th. But
I'm
Tim,
sorry to report, I will not be volunteering for that anymore. It hurts too much in these old days.
well, congratulations for persevering. The next fence build is October 1st. There are 7 lucky dogs are they getting like a condominium? Or a very complicated piece of the townhome? Yeah, okay.
Each get a week. They each get a week.
I'm not sure that's how the fences work, but perhaps. And I think Reverend Pat told us earlier that on careful recalculation, our congregation contributed north of $1,100 to Joy International, which was a very important thing to do. Are there any announcements that I didn't know about that we should include?
Yes, Andy. The announcements say that child circles are sort of open, but they're not. We've allocated everyone, we have 3 groups, and we're all scheduled and ready to go. But we are not open for new members.
Tim did a great job.
Yes.
Sandy, don't you want to mention the police officer coming at 4:15 today? Why?
Rescue.
That's a private meeting.
Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
Private meeting.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Our closing song is number 123 in your hymn books, Spirit of Life. Please stand as you're willing and able.
You may be seated. Our closing words come from Larry Bouchette, who said to Senator Burr's staff the other day, let's not do to these Afghans what happened after Vietnam. Let's take care of our allies, the people who risked their lives to help our country for 20 years of war in Afghanistan. These folks really need our help. And the folks who are opposed to this bill are splitting hairs over nothing. This is a very straightforward, well-vetted, effective bill. Afghan Adjustment Act, Senator Burr, Senator Tillis. Senator Tillis.
Please say with me the words in your order of service as I extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we come together again. Go in peace.